All right, it is officially 8:30. We'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Justine Paradiso, and I am the Marketing and Programs Manager at the Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of myself, our board chair, Darren Harmon, and the entire chamber team, thank you so much for joining us this morning for our Business Builder Breakfast. Before we begin, we have some amazing sponsors I want to thank that help make this event possible. Our ultimate presenting sponsors are Medical Associates Clinic and Health Plans, Midwest One Bank, Q Casino, and TH Media. And our platinum sponsors are Anderson Window and Door, Cartograph, Collins Community Credit Union, Digital Dubuque, Envision, Fidelity Bank, Forge Social, Grand River Center, Grand River Medical Group, Holiday Inn, John Deere Dubuque Works, Mercy One Dubuque, Stonehill Communities, Town Square Media, Unity Point Health Dubuque, and US Bank. A round of applause for them from wherever you are. Today's speaker is Sergio Rojas, presenting Stress Management and Resilience, the New Wellness and Productivity Tools. Sergio has over 23 years of experience as a holistic health coach and corporate wellness consultant. In addition to working with dozens of professional athletes, CEOs, and celebrities, Sergio has also worked with many corporations and community organizations, helping them to develop and implement a variety of wellness, leadership, and productivity programs. In addition to a wide variety of advanced health and fitness certifications, Sergio is trained in leadership, emotional intelligence, and NLP, plus a degree in psychology, providing a well-rounded approach to wellness and productivity. Sergio's media experience includes 11 years as the fitness and wellness expert for NBC5 in Chicago, appearances on the Today Show, and was a finalist featured trainer for the Dr. Oz Show. He has also written for national publications, including Men's Fitness Magazine and ESPN Teen. Additionally, Sergio is the former strength and conditioning coach for the WNBA's Chicago Sky and the former executive director of President's Council of Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. Sergio is currently a corporate health consultant working with various individuals and organizations. We are so excited to have him here today. Please give a warm chamber welcome to Sergio.
Thank you so much, Justine. Thanks, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Just a good thumbs up if you want. Whoever's got their cameras on. I do see some familiar names and faces, so it's good to see. I lived in Dubuque for 4 years, working with Hirschbach, which is one of the companies that I worked with with my wellness program. Hi, Megan. And one of the great things that we did, I worked with Megan as well, but one of the things that we got to do was working with resilience and emotional intelligence in the last 7-8 months at Hirschbach. And that was really, really cool to see the shift and the impact that it had on the entire organization. But we worked on it from the very beginning. And it's just kind of a cool thing, a cool community out there in Dubuque. I have been blessed that for the last few months, we've been through the Florida Keys, Miami, Mexico, Costa Rica, and then we're heading to Colombia. So we're spending about 8 months this year traveling in warm climates while my kids are being homeschooled. We just thought with the inconsistencies in COVID, it'd be a perfect opportunity. And because a lot of the consulting is now being done through Zoom, it just presented itself as an opportunity. And I'm pretty excited about it to be able to do this kind of stuff. So I just want to kind of share, my heart with what I love helping people and companies do is just to develop health and happiness and productivity within an individual and within an organization. I think as a society, when you look at America, I think we are addicted to work. We just definitely spend a lot of time and a big portion of our lives at work. So when I can help people become healthier, happier, more productive, get along better within organizations, that brings me a lot of joy because I just know that that really improves quality of life. And that's just kind of really what I've been passionate about my whole life, is helping people overcome just massive stress, anxiety, depression, which is something that I had to deal with as a child, watching my dad suffer from depression, being taken advantage of in a couple of businesses that he tried to start. And he came, we were very, 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 very poor moving from South America to the United States when I was a little kid. And just seeing people take advantage of my dad on a couple of business attempts that he did really brought a lot of anger and depression in me. And in my 20s, I was going nowhere fast. And I basically remember wanting a motorcycle more than anything in the world. I never could afford one. So what I decided to do was I stopped doing drugs and alcohol, which I had been doing since my early teens. And I said, if I got into good shape and did this 4-month fitness challenge at a health club, I would reward myself with a motorcycle. And I did. I was very clean, sober, bought a motorcycle after 4 months. And I remember riding that motorcycle. I'm like, see, this is what I needed to bring me happiness and joy. And I was riding late at night in Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. And I remember thinking to myself after a little bit on the motorcycle saying, wow, actually, I haven't been angry or depressed for several months. And that's when that light bulb clicked into me that our physical health is really directly connected to our emotional health. And as I looked around and saw so many people struggling with both physical and emotional health, that's when I decided that's what I'm going to do with my life. And that's why I'm doing what I do today. And today we're just going to go over a quick presentation that hopefully kind of will help you and anything you're going through. I know COVID has been a challenge for a lot of us. Quarantining is difficult. Missing friends and family is challenging. I'm actually in Miami right now, and this is my cousin's office and company, and her parents, she hasn't seen her parents for 6 months, 7 months, other than from a distance, and that's been really strainful on them. So they're getting their second vaccine this week, as my parents are as well, which is kind of cool, so they can see each other more. But whether you're thinking about this, before I start, I want you to really think about this for your own personal lives, as well as for your teams, if you're a manager or an owner of a company, the culture of your organization. But so I guess try to look at it from two lenses at the same time. And I'm sure everybody here has that capability of kind of going back and forth and seeing, how does this work in my own personal life? And then how can I, share this information and build a culture that helps support resilience, wellness, stress management, and obviously they'll help become more productive. Let's see here. Trying to see if this works. Okay. So basically my objectives today, first, is to understand stress and how the ability to manage stress is directly connected to our physical and mental well-being. I mean, they're just really intertwined. That's a really, really important thing. I also want to give you tools today that you can leave to help manage stress more effectively, whether it's an immediate stress, kind of an anxiety attack that you may be struggling with at times, or just overwhelming emotions at times, or if it's a longer term overall stress. But this all helps improve resilience and in turn increases emotional intelligence, which I'll touch base on a little bit in a second. I want to share the 4 pillars of resilience so you can operate personally and professionally at optimal levels, as well as maintain optimal health and well-being, even under high levels of stress, such as what we've been going through for this past year now, right? I also want to help you understand the connection between resilience and emotional intelligence, and as well as your ability to be a good, successful leader, and how it affects teams, your team success, as well as the organization's success. I also want to make sure that this is somewhat experiential. I don't want to just talk and talk and talk. We are going to pause for a few seconds and just try a couple little things to make it active. So if you're uncomfortable with your camera, obviously when I'm sharing a screen, we only see 2 or 3 people, so it's not a big deal. But if you want to turn your camera off when we do them, you're more than welcome to do that. But I do want to at least have you experience something physiologically so you notice a difference. I want to talk about resilience as this thing under the umbrella of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, if you haven't been studying up on it, it's really, really, really critical. And we'll go into it a little bit, but resilience is just one of the most hot topics right now because of how we've been going through so many unique situations. And not only that, but how the world is changing at such a rapid pace these days that it stresses people out, and resilience is so critical. But under emotional intelligence umbrella, there's also resilience, but it has its own umbrella, right? There's a lot of things that fall under emotional intelligence, like self-awareness, empathy, self-control, influence, and leadership. But all of these fall under resilience and the resilience umbrella as well. So the other thing that you find is that emotional intelligence falls under resilience too, when you start looking at all the things that it takes to build resilience. So I guess what this is really saying is that when you're working on emotional intelligence, you're building resilience. When you're working on resilience, you're building emotional intelligence. They really support each other and are really critical. And to give you a quick overview on, let's see if I can move this here a little bit. Some of the pictures I wasn't able to see. You know what else I forgot to do here? I know you wanted me to record, right?
I already took care of it.
You did? Oh, you are awesome. Look at you. Thank you, Justine. All right. So just a quick overview on emotional intelligence, right? It's emotional learning versus cognitive learning. We can learn skills, but emotional learning is really different. It's a lot of practical stuff of going through experiences, being able to self-assess an experience and try to adjust how you behave and how you are aware of your emotions. But what it does is it really helps you become in charge of your habits versus habits controlling you. And if you haven't heard this term, we are the sum of our habits. So whatever you're struggling in life or whatever challenges you're going through, or maybe your team is going through, look at their habits, look at your habits, because that is really what leads to who we are today. When I talk about health change, I think so many people struggle with their health because they go into a program and they do something external. They'll do, 6-week or 12-week or 90-day weight loss challenge to go in this program, but it's external. And they're just forcing themselves to follow a program versus identifying their own habits and the triggers of their habits. So I always teach, do small little things and start reducing some of the other things that are not going to lead you towards your goals in small micro habits. And that really leads to a lot of success. And emotional intelligence really helps you stick to those good habits. Emotional intelligence is about recognizing conflict and, addressing it before it escalates, really being good at that. And one of the things that I really love and admire about Brad, the CEO and the president and owner of Hirschbach, is really how he recognizes conflict and he addresses it way before it escalates, and he addresses it in such a calm manner, which is next. You handle stress situations calmly and thoughtfully. He really is a good thinker, he's a very critical thinker, really good with communicating in a calm manner. Another thing, you develop empathy and become much more effective of a communicator. So many people, and even managers and leaders, communicate from their own perspectives versus really understanding other people's perspectives. I remember having a boss that used to just try to use words to confuse me so we could look up to him. Not just me, but my team. And it really wasn't effective. And when he was trained in emotional intelligence, you can see the shift of him now trying to communicate in a way that connected to us, which makes you a better leader. And overall emotional intelligence helps increase mental and physical well-being and joy. This is a study that showed that emotional intelligence, out of 34 factors that predicted success and performance, was number one. So when you start looking at how do I know if my employees or my team are going to be successful, look at emotional intelligence. And there's different things you can do to test for emotional intelligence, and there's different trainings you can do for emotional intelligence. Just kind of looking at the definition of resilience, right? Resilience is basically the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back. Psychologists define resilience as adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. And we find these again at work, at home. There's lots of different things, our health issues. So just kind of, can you bounce back? And how fast do you bounce back and how well do you bounce back is truly what resilience is. Do you bend or break? I love this because this is really resilience, right? And I think about a tree that um, is it rigid, and you got to think about your own life, or if you start identifying certain traits in employees, are they so rigid or they kind of work in a way that isn't flexible? But one of the first things we talk about is, do you have strong roots? You know, what is your training or education? What is your values, your beliefs, your goals? Those are all strong roots to really help. You have a good support system of either, you know, at work or home. Those things build the strong roots. And then, are you flexible? Because I've seen and identified so many people that they see the world a certain way and they're so rigid and they don't want to go out of their comfort zone. And being flexible and adaptable is really critical, so you bend when the stress comes versus breaking. So how do we build this resilience? Let's go over these 4 key pillars of resilience. The first is effective stress management. And when I think about stress management, I think about a window of tolerance, or like a sailboat, right? A sailboat's going to go this way to get to its goal, to its path. But you don't want to hit the riverbanks, right? You want to make sure you're turning at the right time. You don't want the waves to tip you over and the wind to tip you over. So when you think about that window of tolerance in our optimal stress zone, it's basically your good well-being. You have, you know, a positive way to deal with the stress. You feel confident, you have empathy, you're present, you react properly. So these are all the different things that happen when you're in that right or optimal stress arousal zone, right? If we're above or outside of that window of tolerance, you can either have overarousal, which is fight or flight. That's that sympathetic nervous response. This is the tension that we see in our society day in and day out that has kind of taken over our lives, and it's actually impacted our home as well, which we'll get into a second. But when you have this fight or flight, you have tension, you react emotionally, not always thoughtfully. You have racing thoughts, often based out of fear or anger. There's emotional overwhelm, you're hypervigilant, and you don't feel safe. Again, what does this lead to? It leads to overreacting, making poor decisions, and often to regret. Or you can freeze. And that's just another thing when we're outside of our window of tolerance. And again, the stress is too much in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes we freeze, right? Which means the stress is depleting all our energy. We're not present. We feel kind of numb, shut down, detached. We burn out. Our heart still races. We still feel the stress and the anxiety, but we can't even think. Thoughts aren't even happening. And this is when we fail to make decisions, and again, leads to regret. So as I just mentioned, with a sailboat, we're trying to get from point A to point B, but that resilience is the ability to turn that sail and get back on track, regardless if there's strong winds or big waves, which are the stressors in life, and to be able to bounce back so we can stay on track in our life, whether it's work, home, any kind of goals. Stress management is a key part of resilience. How do we manage each of these gusts of wind? How do we learn to work with the wind? And when you think about stress, which actually is a good thing, and it's really important for us, right? Think about exercise, that's a form of stress. Think about going into a sauna. Heat is a form of stress. Cold therapy, fasting, these are all actually proper forms of stress that we need on a regular basis. The problem with stress is when it becomes chronic and continuous and we perceive it to be outside of our abilities, which is basically outside of our tolerance window, right? And we don't think we can cope with it or manage it properly. Then when this happens over time, I mean, any of these, even at the top, that you see that are good for us, if you do too much exercise, if you stay in a sauna more than 20, 30 minutes, if you have cold therapy, you stay there more than 5 or 10 minutes. If you fast too long, you starve, right? So all these things, if it's too much, becomes where you have the negative effects that cause anxiety, damage our own cells, it feels unpleasant, we can't even concentrate, and it leads to a lot of physical and mental ailments. So how stress affects our personal and professional life. Think about chronic work stress situations, right? It's sad when you see, personalities at work that just have a lot of tension and conflict. whether it's colleagues, whether it's managers and subordinates. It's a really difficult situation, especially when we know we work, spend again so many hours of our life at work, to have this kind of conflict. Another stressor is if you feel like you're in a position that's way out of your own capabilities. If you get promoted, if you've heard of the Peter principles. In America, we've been trained in this cultural business that we give people promotions, but when they get promoted to a level above their capacity or capabilities, we don't bring them back down, we fire them because they're not doing a good job, versus saying, we'll only bring you down one level where you were successful last. So that's really stressful. Or if you're just in a job that you're so far below your capabilities. Things like job cuts, poor communication, whether it's leadership, subordinates, colleagues, or yourself. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we're just afraid to say certain things at our job. And that really causes a lot of stress when we don't feel comfortable speaking out. If you have unclear objectives or job description, that's really probably one of the most scary things to be involved in that situation. Or if you're just, under demand, where sometimes we know emergencies happen. When COVID first came, I was probably working 17-hour days, working with truck drivers that were responding or calling to us, feeling stressed out about the whole situation. But after a few weeks, we found a team to support and have a 24-hour hotline for our truck drivers. And that kind of dispersed. So after 2 or 3 weeks, we were able to do that. But if I would have had to do that for months on end, I would have obviously experienced a lot of burnout and not lasted. The thing that we want to help you understand about stress at work is that it impacts the home. This home or home work life balance, to me, is a myth. Our home and our work are so integrated in so many ways, especially now that a lot of us are working from home. But even before then, I think it really does. Our work life does impact our home life, especially when you stress at work, brings a lot of stress at home and impacts relationships and all kinds of other things. So then you have the stress at home, struggling marriage or relationships, seriously ill child or partner, financial troubles, troubled kids, constant home repairs, tension. All this stuff impacts our ability to concentrate and focus at work. So again, it's this negative cycle that really hurts each other. Like we talked about how emotional intelligence and resilience support each other. This work stress and home stress are a downward spiral because they really impact each other. And to me, as an employer or a manager, I'm always looking at how can I help my teams manage their stress better, have more resilience, and be a supportive culture for the person. So this chronic emotional stress at home and work, plus physical stress or chronic physical stress like poor diet, poor sleep, overexertion, lack of mobility, not exercising, and medications, all causes an overproduction of cortisol. This is inflammation in our system that destroys or creates an imbalance in our hormones, which leads to illness and organ dysfunction. This is just physical health. And then mismanagement of our immune system, which also leads to autoimmune. Stressful situations and the inability or the lack of resilience leads to a lot of illness and disease, including a lot of autoimmune. There's tons and tons of studies that show people who've gone through deep meditation and health cleanses that really have overcome autoimmunes, where a lot of people feel it's not capable of doing it. My brother lost his daughter when she was 3 years old, and literally within 6 months, he started losing his hair and then his eyelashes and his eyebrows, and he had alopecia and autoimmune from losing his daughter, which again, that's a trauma and a stressor that I don't wish on anyone, and probably one of the hardest to overcome. It's been 7 years now, and his health is definitely improved. He has 3 other daughters now, and it's been a long journey, but obviously they've done a lot better, which is great to see. But understanding that this chronic stress, this inability to have resilience, is impacting us on such a strong level. These are just kind of some statistics that we got in some research that 43% of adults suffer from health effects. 75 to 90% of physician visits have stress-related ailments and complaints. It's caused, they call it the leading cause of death, because it's linked to the 6 leading causes of death, right? And it's also a safety hazard. I've been doing safety training for a company in Dubuque, as well as an industry, not just a trucking industry, but I'm also in this labor industry, and talking about how this stress management and resilience and emotional intelligence and well-being and health really impact safety. So I want you to think about for a minute something that's stressing you out at work. You know, what is a stress that you have going on right now that sometimes, you know, you carry home with you? Any situation, a person, or anything like that. And as you think about it, notice what it does to your body. Does it create your heart to race a little bit? Does it create a little heat in your body? Does it create a little bit of motion? When this situation happens, think about, how do you normally react? Are you reacting as your highest self, or are you emotionally reacting? So when you start to feel the stress, I want you to think about this, just breath, maybe the ocean too. So we're going to do a quick breathing exercise. So if you don't mind, just take 5 deep breaths. Pause for a minute and just take 5 deep breaths. And I can't see everybody, but my guess is most people, as you're filling your lungs up, your chest is rising, right? And that's called infantile breathing. But what I want to teach you today is a tool called diaphragmatic breathing. And some of you may have heard of it. But diaphragmatic breathing has been identified as the #1 thing you could do to fight cancer, diabetes, heart disease, dementia. The #1 thing you do to prolong life, because it is a massive stress reducer. It can lower your heart rate between 10 and 15 beats per minute. It can lower your blood pressure. And diaphragmatic breathing is basically breathing from your low belly, right? So what I want you to do is you sit up tall and drop your shoulders. You're going to put your hand on your belly where your thumb is on your belly button, and then the other hand over it. And as you're going to inhale through your nose, you're going to expand your belly. So don't worry about your 6-pack abs right now. We're going to just let our bellies hang, our Buddha bellies come out, right? So as you inhale, instead of the chest expanding, the belly should expand. Just nice and slow without forcing it, and slowly breathe out through your mouth, putting a little pressure with your hands and flattening the belly. And if you're willing, just close your eyes for a few seconds as you do this. Inhaling all the way down as low as you can to your belly with your nose, and exhaling slowly through your mouth. Don't force it, keeping the shoulders relaxed. About 1 more minute, and as you're doing this, make sure that the exhale is slightly longer than your inhale. And as you breathe in, you can visualize into your low belly kind of like a heat or a light energy filling you up with health, vitality, calmness. As you exhale, allow your muscles to relax a little deeper, washing away any stress, any negative thoughts, any anxiety. And just 2 more breaths. And come on back. Some of you may not want to come back. That's more fun than the lecture and all this crazy information, right? So again, to me, I'm just going to ask you, how do you feel? Think about the difference there compared to thinking about the stress, seeing how you embody stress, and just doing that for, we did maybe about 1.5 minutes. What we teach is about 3 to 4 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day. What it does for you, it pumps up your T cells. It's one of the strongest and best tools you can possibly do to really enhance your health, to be able to manage stress and to build resilience. It gives you that calmness and that pause, right? So just think about practicing diaphragmatic breathing. I can send links also on exact tools and how to learn to do it optimally, right? All right, let's go back to stress. Let's think about something that's causing us stress at home. What is something at home that's kind of just been a challenge? You're trying to get work done and the kids are there, can't get work done. Whatever it is, just again, when you're home, what is the most stressful situation you deal with on a regular basis or something that's just been happening lately? And what does that do to your heart rate, to your body, to your thoughts? And as you embody that, we're going to now move. So if you have a little bit of space, if you're sitting, you can do this sitting, either way, ideally standing. But what I want you to do is basically, if you have one foot forward in front of the other, I want you to just reach your hands up and as far back as possible. And then you're going to come down and reach towards the foot that's forward. If you're sitting, you can do the sitting. You just do that twice, once, and then come back up. Stretch back. And then reach down. And then we'll switch sides. Put the other foot forward. Go up and back, drive your hips forward as the arms go up and back. And then reach down. One more time, up and back. Reach down, stretch the hamstring and calf. All right. I'm going to have you just reach as far as you can to the side of one arm. As far as you can to the other side. All right. You're going to take your left hand, sort of tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. All right. Take your right hand, put the palm facing up. So your right hand's going to go across your body. Your left hand's going to reach. So now you're twisting and reaching at the same time and leaning. There you go. And then come back and do the other side. You might get a little snap, crackle, and pop in the shoulders, rib cage, and then do one more time on each side. So rotate. One hand's rotating and the other hand's leaning in the opposite direction. And then last one. All right, one last thing. I want you to stand up if you can. You want to use your chair, your desk, you can, but I want you to basically squat. You're going to just basically do a squat, come down. You're going to squat and reach with one hand and twist. Squat and reach with the other hand and twist. Then the fourth squat will be straight down again. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And come on back. Again, ask yourself, how do you feel? How did that help with the stress? How did it help with the thoughts? So I think more people in our society stress out about getting a workout in, and when they get they either don't work out because they think it's a 45-minute or an hour time of their day, or they're so stressed about it and the anxiety of the exercise and the need to working out is as much as stressful as not working out. So what I want to recommend is just think about moving more. Think about take movement breaks throughout your day. At Hirschbach, Brad invested several $100,000 to put standing desks for every single employee. And we taught it as a culture. You don't have to stand all day, stand for 10 minutes an hour, and then try to take a walk, a 5-minute walk every 2 hours. Stretch once in the morning and once at the end of the day. And those little tiny habits make such a big difference when it comes to stress management, resilience, emotional intelligence, ability to focus and concentrate. So again, if you start to feel any kind of stress, tension, anxiety, if you see that in your team, build it as a culture. hey, we're going to take 5-minute stretch breaks or 2-minute stretch breaks. We just did 2 minutes of exercise. And you start to see the chemistry change in the brain and your physiology, and it just makes the world of a difference. So here are the top 10 tools you can use for managing stress. Meditate or breathe deep, right? I think if everybody meditated, we have a whole different world. And just 5 minutes is all you really need. And if you're new to it and you don't know how to meditate, which I hear 1,000 times, just use guided meditation. Go on YouTube and what is a goal? Stress management or clarity for the day or positive thinking, whatever it is. And write the word meditation in it and you'll find a guided meditation. There's millions of them. I think being of service to others is probably the number one thing next to meditation that you can do to manage stress. We all have challenges in life, but there's always people that have more challenges. One of the things I really, really, really loved about Dubuque is it is a community that really gets involved to support people with greater needs and trouble, people who are struggling in some way, shape, or other. So if you're not involved in some form of service, find a way to be of service to others. I think it's so, so, so important. Being present. Most people, their stress and anxiety comes from thinking about the past to the future, right? When you think about the future, you have anxiety. I think my wife, kids, and I have had 6 COVID tests in the last, probably 9 weeks, 10 weeks, because of all of our traveling between countries. And my wife and my son have so much anxiety. Which one is this going to be? Is it going to be the little brush or is it going to be this cotton swab? Yesterday we went to Walgreens to get tested because we're going to Colombia on Friday. And my wife and son didn't want to do it. That they're just the anxiety for 3 days about doing it because it was self-administered. They're like, I can't self-administer this thing. I just won't be able to do it. And we went there and it was easier than ever. And so much stress we put on ourselves by thinking about the future. Be present. And you realize that you can only do what you can do. You can only control what you can control, but it takes away a lot of our stress and anxiety. Reaching out and connecting with others. I think so many people hold things in, especially us men. My dad was a big example of that. All the stuff he went through throughout his life, he really kept it in versus really reaching out and connecting with others. And thankfully, he shifted his health 25 years ago and built a couple of strong friendships. And while he never became successful in business, he has found happiness. He's 79 years old, takes a very, very low dose of blood pressure medication. But other than that, he is a really healthy guy, rides a bicycle, cuts coconuts, and eats them. Funny. Decompress. If you're feeling stress, take the moment to decompress before you react. Whether it's just taking a quick walk, doing a few breaths, listening to a couple of songs, find ways to decompress. Laughing and smiling, so watching comedy, listening to comedy, being around a friend who makes you laugh and smile a lot is a great way to manage stress. Upbeat or relaxing music, obviously getting moving, get into nature, and then practice gratitude. One of the things that I've done with my kids since they were really, really young is every evening when we go to bed, I ask them give me 5 things that brought them joy that day. Because I want the gratitude to be about happiness and joy in the moment so they're aware. And then every Sunday when we have dinner, we always say, what are you grateful for overall in your life? What are the 3 things you're most grateful for? And just keep practicing gratitude. It's so powerful. If anybody's interested, a friend of mine, Julie Boyer, she's a Canadian author, wrote a book called 30 Days of Gratitude. And it's a great, great book to just start practicing gratitude and building that into your lifestyle and habit and teaching it to your teams. The second pillar of resilience is self-awareness and self-control. And if you start looking at emotional intelligence, this is actually the first 2 stages of building your EQ, which is emotional quotient or emotional intelligence quotient. But self-awareness and self-control are kind of 2 stages within emotional intelligence, but it's combined into one pillar when you think about resilience. So how do we build self-awareness? First is knowing what pushes us out of that window of tolerance. What are the triggers that take us beyond our ability to manage stress? And once you start to understand those, you can start addressing them. But a lot of people just don't know. They just overreact at times, where they get overly stressed and yell at their kids when they didn't want to, or have a fight at work that they didn't want to have, or whatever the situation being. So really start to ask yourself, what are the situations when I see myself not acting at my highest self? What are those triggers? What's causing that? And let me start working on that. Another thing is, do you see yourself as others see you? We did some tests at Hirschbach, and I've done them with other companies. We just did it at a Catholic hospital in Chicago with nurses. There's different personality tests and tests you can see to identify how you see yourself and how others see you, and how accurate are you. And most people have a pretty big gap. People with high emotional intelligence have a smaller gap because they're aware of their flaws and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't. And then, do you have high emotional intelligence or low? It's really, really critical to understand. And here are just a few of the questions. We use much longer questionnaire to really identify people who are struggling with their EQ. But again, when you're in a meeting, do you find yourself thinking of other things? During this presentation, am I boring the heck out of you? And you have 6 other meetings you got to deal with, or 6 other things you got to deal with today. And multitasking. If you're trying to multitask on a regular basis, there's a skill there, but it's also again, you're starting to diminish your emotional intelligence, because in reality, our brain works at optimal levels when it's focused on something. When somebody's talking, are you thinking? Is your voice so loud that you're thinking about what you want to say, or you're thinking about your thoughts in your head more than what the person's saying? You take it personal when other people don't agree with your thoughts and ideas. You sometimes hold knowledge back, whether it's to advance yourself or fear of being criticized. And do you create attention for yourself or avoid attention in ways that are disruptive? Those are things to just kind of think about. You can ask yourself or ask your teams to say, hey, we got to work on certain things here. Self-control is the gap, right? That pause space between stimulus and response. And in 7 Habits, Stephen Covey's, which I'm certified in teaching 7 Habits, it's one of the big things that we talk about when you want to become an effective person is, can you really create that pause between when something happens and when you react? It's a really, really strong and powerful tool to really create that pause and space, because when you react right away, we often are reacting out of our emotion and often regret some reactions, especially in stressful situations. So really finding ways to create that space. And then also self-control is differentiating between pleasure and true happiness. So I don't know if you ever heard of the delayed gratification studies. They've done it with kids, they've done it with adults. But there's been so many studies on, the kid study was that they gave them 1 marshmallow and they say, if you can wait 15 minutes, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. The kids that waited 15 minutes, they followed them 30, 40 years later into their life. Not only were healthier, had less behavioral issues, did better on tests, they're also much more successful in business and in relationships. So lots of benefits to it. And they've showed it in business as well. People who are willing to delay gratification, that understand what, hey, I don't need this pleasure right now. I don't need to go on this vacation, or I need to pause for a little bit. I need to accomplish this goal for my team or for my company first, and then I can go. Those kind of things really have a lot of strength and connection to not only just success, but being happier. In NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, Robert Dilts and Steve Gilligan taught this and developed this coach state really, really well. And I like to teach it to managers or anybody who controls meetings or leads meetings. But thinking about our physiological, physical, and emotional state, you want to be in a coach state. So before you go in a meeting, spend 2 or 3 minutes getting centered. What does that mean? So my heart, my gut, and my head are connected, and that's that line. So just take a deep breath and feel centered. And if you guys don't know what NLP is, neuro-linguistic programming is psychology that goes beyond having a conversation. It's about how do we put it into our bodies, and behavior change is much stronger when we can anchor something with an object, when we can use a physical movement. You've seen Tony Robbins do this power move, when he's getting pumped up. And that's why he coaches the top people in the world, and as does Robert Dilts. But again, being open. So we tell people to open their heart, open their head. And so if I go to a meeting and I'm thinking I want to be centered and grounded, and really kind of my heart, my gut, and my head are connected. So my intuition, my compassion, and my thoughts, my intelligence. I want to open my heart and open my mind to ideas that come in the meeting. And to, if I have a goal with the meeting, but something else comes up more important within the meeting, I can shift. Being aware of the environment, aware of what the goal is of the meeting, aware of myself. If I have anything outside kind of bugging me, I want to be aware of that and then let it go. And being aware of other people's intentions, goals, thoughts in our meeting. I want to be connected to everybody in the meeting, and connected to the vision of what the company is, whether people have different ideas of what maybe you want to pursue within your organization. Know that everybody's ideas, even though they're different, are still connected to the company's long-term vision and goal. And that's really, really important. And then you want to hold it, and holding means just supporting. I want to support what we're really trying to accomplish here as an organization. Even though I want to accomplish this in my meeting, if other people have different ideas or better ideas, it's still towards the same goal. So I want to hold and support that. So that's really, really powerful tool to use for just 3 minutes of consciousness to get yourself into coach state instead of a crash state. So many people are contracted or closed, whether they come in, how many times have you come in to lead a meeting, but you just came from another stressful meeting, right? Your boss just ripped you one, but you got to go to your meeting and try to motivate your team, right? Which makes you reactive. Sometimes you get analysis paralysis. You start thinking too much, and you're afraid to take action on things because of fear. You feel separated. These one or two people on our team have such a different vision from doing what I want to do or the way I want to do it, and it causes hurting not just for yourself but for your team and your organization. So that's kind of coach state, and I think that's a really powerful way to build self-control and resilience. All right, the third pillar here is beliefs and belief systems. Dilts talks about this a lot in NLP, winning belief systems. Basically, we need to believe and have an expectation of a positive future. We have to have hope always. No matter how crazy this world gets, there is always hope, and we have to believe in that for us to be successful, to have resilience, and to really build towards the future, right? You also have to believe that you're capable and responsible, right? So if you have a skill that you don't know, that's okay. How can you develop that skill? And I think the world today is a lot less about skills and more about emotional intelligence. When you get into a job, you can start developing the skills, because each job in the marketplace these days have shifted so much over the last 25 years that jobs have blended, or job responsibilities have blended so much. And then a sense of self-worth and belonging. These are 3 things that you need to have as far as your beliefs and belief systems, so you can build resilience. And I think it's so powerful when so many people struggle with false and limiting beliefs. Is there something that you believed about yourself in a negative way that's held you back? And this is kind of this study on belief systems that, we know this unconscious competence. We don't know that we don't know something, right? Or we don't know that we do know something, right? And all of a sudden we want to improve on this skill. We have a specific goal that we want to get to. Unconscious incompetence means that we don't know this. So we're kind of moving close to our expectations. We're just working and learning a new skill. But all of a sudden, something becomes like what we were expecting ourselves, and how we're performing isn't the same, because there are certain skills that we haven't acquired yet, and that's conscious incompetence. Now, again, we know that we don't know something. When you have false and limiting beliefs, when you know you don't know something, it brings you down. So you bring your expectations down, and then you don't perform that well, as opposed to when we want more accurate and optimistic belief systems. When we know we don't know something, we go and study it. We build our competence. And it's slowly, you can see from that third point, that conscious incompetence, you build up to conscious competence by developing that skill. And then unconscious competence basically means you've mastered something. You don't even think about it anymore. And this increases resilience for us, which is really, really powerful. The fourth key pillar for resilience is support. And one of the things, again, I mentioned earlier about that I love about Dubuque is that there is a strong community. There is a lot of support from family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, church. I remember when we first moved to Dubuque, I took my son out for Cub Scout selling popcorn. And I told my wife, hey, I'll be back in an hour. We're just gonna go around the neighborhood. And like 3.5 hours later, she called me. She's like, where are you at? I'm like, oh, I'm just at this house. She's like, how many houses have you gone to? I'm like, I'm at the 5th house. I think everybody invites us for tea and wants to get to meet us and talk to us. And neighbors, and how supportive everybody was, knowing that we're not from Dubuque, and how people in Dubuque have strong generational family roots. But being an outsider, people were really supportive of wanting me to feel like a Dubuquer, And even like how you guys in Dubuque have built that marketing program about I'm a Dubuquer, and it's people that have moved to Dubuque from other places. And that's really, really cool to see this strong support and community. I think that really helps with resilience, to bounce back from adversity and from stressful situations, from challenges at work. We need support. So think about your company culture. Are you supportive to your employees when they're going through difficult and challenging situations? And how can you be better if you're not? These are just some studies I wanted to show with emotional intelligence in leaders. It's really interesting that the satisfaction with a leader because of their emotional intelligence is so important. And it was so critical that it was more effective, that people really connected to their leader more than they did to their organization. People that are a little bit older in age connected more to their organization, but still not as much as they connected to their leader. So people's satisfaction, if their boss or leader is highly emotional intelligent, is really, really strong, and will keep them with the company longer based on just commitment. It starts with this, really it's admiration or respect for their leader, but then they feel more satisfied with the job in the organization. So just a really cool thing to see when you're started building a culture of resilience, wellness, emotional intelligence. So that's truly what I wanted to share with you today. I hope this has kind of been helpful to kind of get you thinking about what are ways we can improve in our own organizations and in my own personal life with my own family. How can you help your family, your team, your organizations, yourself become more resilient, have higher levels of emotional intelligence, and just be more successful, happier, and enjoy life. I will end the sharing here and just open it up for questions. Justine, if you want to help unmute anybody that has any questions, I'm here for anybody that has anything that they want to say. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's been a helpful presentation for you.
Yes, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I really did, after doing some of those stretches and breathing, I really did feel relaxed. I actually can just feel myself just being a little more less tense, I guess. So that was wonderful. If anybody does have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you wish to ask it yourself, let me know and I can unmute you. I actually had one. In my previous life, I worked for another company where I did a lot of answering the phones, and they tallied how many phone calls you got. So you basically were chained to your desk during the day. So my question is, for people who have that kind of work culture that you cannot get up and just go for your 5-minute walk or, take some time, what do you encourage them to do to keep their emotional intelligence, their everything kind of in balance?
Yeah, I think standing at your desk when you're on the phone, having that ability to do that is really critical. So if you have to sit, that's challenging. So I would, talk to the company and say, hey, is there any way we can get? You don't have to buy expensive standing desks. You can just buy little adaptable tables for your phone or your computers, so you can use them while you're standing. And obviously, there's all kinds of phone earpieces that you can use that you're able to at least stand. Can you spend 30 seconds or a minute doing slow, deep breathing between phone calls? I've done meetings when we're just talking and we're going to talk and move and meet at the same time. We're going to do this kind of funky stuff. as we're talking. And I think that's absolutely okay to do that. Finding ways to just be mindful of, can I move? Can I breathe a little bit slower? Can I do things that make me feel better? And then obviously during your breaks, make sure that you are taking time if you feel the anxiety and stress to manage that.
Looks like we have a question from Megan. Megan, you are unmuted.
All right. Hi, Sergio.
Hi, Meg.
I just wanted to ask you, well, first I want to say I've been living vicariously through you and your family throughout the last several months. So it's been really nice to see that. You guys, it looks like you're having a fantastic time. You guys look so refreshed. It's awesome. What is the name of the author, your friend? Is it Jane, the 30 Days of Gratitude?
Oh, Julie Boyer, which is Boyer.
Okay.
It's French Canadian.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. A message that from Samantha that just says, amazing presentation, great information. And she's going to look more into the neurolinguistic programming, as she does remember studying that when she got her psychology degree many years ago. And just a big thank you.
Oh, perfect. So recommend any of the books by Robert Dilts, and you'll see he has and DILTS, fantastic books, and goes specific into certain areas. So you'll see a lot of his books that kind of whatever you want to focus on it in NLP at the time.
Excellent. All right. I don't see any other questions, but if anyone happens to have any, feel free to email the chamber and we can get that to Sergio. Sergio, what's the best way for people to find out more about you? Websites, email?
Yeah, vitalitybysergio.com. I just started a new company with my partner, Dr. Patricia Novick. She's got 3 PhDs. And we're both, she's an NLP master, I'm an NLP practitioner. But we are starting a new company called Alive, which is Awaken Leadership Inspired by Values of Excellence, teaching culture change for companies and helping companies just build wellness into their culture, build emotional intelligence, leadership, and stress management all in their culture. And the email Sergio at vitalitybysergio until we get the Alive Consulting website going. But yeah, that's the best thing we can do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to everyone so much for joining us today. Thank you again to our wonderful chamber team, our board chair, Darren Harmon, and the rest of the board. We hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you at the next chamber event. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.